welcome to the Intuitive Insights podcast series. I'm Nina Lockwood, founder and director of Intuitive Interim and Executive Search. Throughout this series, I will be sharing engaging conversations with talented leaders from across the UK transport sector. Today, I am delighted to welcome Jonathan Veitch, Managing Director of Talgo UK Limited, a leading rolling stock engineering company with a global presence in 44 countries. From his early career as an apprentice through various roles in different parts of the railway, John shares his thoughts with us on what matters most. And spoiler alert, it's not all about the train. I do hope you enjoy. John, good morning and welcome to Intuitive Insights podcast. I'm absolutely delighted that you've accepted my invitation to join me on the virtual couch this morning.
Nina, thank you so much. I am actually on my settee at the moment with my coffee and additional coffee. I'm ready to go.
You're well stocked. Brilliant. So for our audience, John, you're the Managing Director of Talgo UK Limited, a leading rolling stock engineering company which covers 44 countries globally. I'm keen to hear more about that role because I know one of the things I love about you is whenever I ask you how you are, you tell me you live in the dream. So we'll get to that shortly, but I wonder whether you could take us back a few years and talk to us about your career in the rail industry, John. I've known you, obviously, I think probably 7 or 8 years now since we first met, and you are one of the most passionate people in terms of the industry itself. And in an industry that's full of passionate people, that's saying something. You're kind of right up there. So I'm really keen to hear how you came into rail in the first place. What was the appeal? Where have you been and what have you done?
Okay, well, thank you so much. Real privilege and an honour to hear. So thank you, Nina. Let's go back even further. A little known fact about myself. During school, did some work experience with an industrial chemical cleaning company in London and the South East. And that gave me exposure to all sorts of methods of work, lack of processes and principles. And I made mistakes, significant mistakes. I flooded Deal Barracks when I was dechlorifying the boilers there. So it's interesting, when you're 16 years old and 300 effectively squaddies are running out saying, "Where's our water?" That was all good fun. So I really sort of just cut my teeth because at school I went to a classical school. And another little thing is if you watch Chariots of Fire, the film, you'll see me at the beginning running.
Really?
That's the school I went to.
Oh my goodness. Well, there's something I didn't know.
Yeah, so my schooling was, as I say, classical. I was always wanting to have hands-on and gain some technical experience. And again, in those days, the school in my last year had the one computer. When we were all crowding around, just trying to get access. What is this magical box? And indeed, careers advice was a video that we all watched in the classroom. And for me, it was okay, but it wasn't sufficient enough. So with that work experience, I then got the opportunity to become a Merchant Navy apprentice. So I went and worked for Townsend Dorison. And I was actually on the sister ship to the Unfortunate Herald, Free Enterprise. Right. So that really was quite a poignant moment for me because I was sailing with the ship, I was cleaning the car decks, all the hard graft work, cleaning the bilge tanks and the like. So it gave me good experience, but I thought that was a pivotal and turning moment, a little bit like the unfortunate Clapham Junction incident. So I got the opportunity to transfer my apprenticeship to British Rail. So I went to Sellers Training School. And again, it was back into the classroom, into the workshop, filing blocks of metal for weeks and days on end to get that straight edge, the blue finish. But again, these are great ethical building blocks that's really stuck by me throughout. So from being an apprentice, I then had the opportunity, because I started to push back a little bit and wanted to just see more of what the railway can provide. There's a railway north of the river, Obviously, the Southern Railway, huge, great training scheme, wonderful training scheme, and it was a pipeline of 25 apprentices per year to feed the maintenance depots and indeed the workshops of the southeast and the south. But I wanted to see what was north of the river. So, in discussions with instructors and the like, I got the opportunity to go and see north of the river. So I went to magical depots, as we would say in those days, the likes and the size of Toton and Willesden, and indeed Scotland. And that really opened my eyes. But at the same time, I have to really think and be grateful to particularly the fleet managers at the time, who then thought, okay, let's spend and invest a bit of time with John. So I had the opportunity to then do my supervisory course at the same time as completing my apprenticeship and indeed my national diploma and my higher nationals in engineering. And again, that was practical examples, understanding what the issues are, particularly with reliability of trains or what the capacity and the capabilities of the depots were. And with that, I then got very quickly moved into my first management role, which was a real surprise, but delighted to have. So I was in charge of the rolling stock inspectors for the South. And these were people who were career railway people, 30, 40 years. They reached the top technically, and we would go and investigate accidents, incidents, and also be in charge of recovery and provide advice for change. And at 21, I was then given the opportunity to become the depot manager at Ramsgate. And that for me was, wow, unbelievable. So that was moving house again. But, to be in charge of 220 people, 800 vehicles at 21. And again, that brought challenge because people said, we've got grandchildren older than you. What do you know? But again, it was for me, it's all about talking with people, listening to people, understanding their issues, not over promising. That's one of the key sort of ideals I have. You be level with people, you be honest with people, and then you try and resolve the situation for people. And for 2.5 years, it grew and grew and grew. So I was thrilled with that. And during that time as well, I had to deal with some really difficult incidents. I think quite recently there's been an anniversary of the train over the viaduct at Ramsgate, which was a very difficult one. So not only was I the depot manager, I was also being investigated to make sure that the processes were appropriate and the like, but I was also having to then deal with the recovery, the repair, and also the changes that were needed as a result of that incident. But I also had to deliver the train service for Kent and the southeast that day. So, 36 hours of intense work just to recover the situation. But then, the improvements that I had to put in place for the next 6 months, and then audit it and the like. So that was a real pivotal moment again for me. I then had the opportunity to go to Scotland as the train care manager. And again, particularly with the partisan way of Scotland at that time, that was interesting because I'd come from a significant location, the opportunity to make change. ScotRail was in the throes where Chris Green had moved up as effectively the general manager and returned. And my first day there, he rang me and said, "John, I understand you're now the train care manager." "Yes, Mr. Green." "Well, there's a cup left on the 17:30 from Edinburgh. What are you going to do about it?"
Oh, my goodness.
Deal with it, Mr. Green.
Right.
So these little pockets, but they're real little disciplines, provides that eye for detail. So you engage with your people, your cleaners, your onboard technicians, and you move forward. From then, I got the opportunity to return to Southeastern as the technical engineer and modifications engineer, and that was effectively removing the old fleets, the slam door fleets, and introducing networker fleets.
Right.
And potentially there's an opportunity that these trains now are, well, needing another refurbishment or to be replaced. So it makes me feel a little bit old now, the trains that I introduced. And
which
now
were
going.
all mod cons at the time,
Yeah. And again, that gave me exposure to two manufacturers who were completely different. It was ABB, as they are now, Adtrans as it was, or Brell, and indeed Alstom, GEC Alstom. And having to bring two different trains together that look very similar, but with different instructions and the like, and then to put a maintenance regime in. The one thing I did, learning from my apprenticeship, the hands-on part, I actually completed every task that was asked with the people from Slade Green as the home location to make sure it was deliverable. And again, that's 6 months of intense work, but for me, this is all about proving and being with the people, because it's very well issuing instructions and guidance, but you have to do it yourself. So that was another key part. And then from there, I got the opportunity to go to Intercity. Intercity was going to be, or West Coast was going to be one of the first franchises to be let. And indeed, through the difficulties, it became one of the last. So I went to Wilson and Wembley. So that was like a return from my apprenticeship. And there were some tough times there. Right. And a certain managing director of Intercity told me, because of through OFQ and improvements that people were wanting to make, that was the Organising for Quality, the 500 and the 5,000 you may have heard of before. There was a need to sort of contract and just understand the business, particularly on the finances, to make it fit for purpose for the franchising. So capacity and staff, people numbers were being reduced, but indeed people were required to deliver. And I had the call, congratulations on becoming the depot manager at Wilson and Wembley. However, you must not use this facility. And if you do, you'll be the quickest depot manager to leave the business. So, very strong messages.
Okay.
So we had to be adaptable. I had to bring the people forward. And it was at the time as well where we were, having to manage people's time. So people having to clock in and out and working with the representatives of the people. That was all very difficult because people found it hard, effectively, to be managed like in a factory job in it.
Yeah.
So there's a cultural thing there. So in the end, it was effectively 10 years on the West Coast, and that's where I really lived and breathed that railway. Be it as we were successful joining Virgin. I actually worked for Virgin twice. But then I also had the opportunity to go to West Coast Train Care, which was the joint venture of Fiat and Alstom, who took over the maintenance and servicing arrangements for the West Coast. So I was on both sides of the table there, and I also got exposure to operations. And one of the best things we did in Virgin was actually put each of the heads of department from each discipline in the same room. Right. We call it Room 15 in London Euston. And, the power that was from operations, from onboard to fleet to drivers, management, driver standards, it was just brilliant, fantastic. And, if I was to give advice to anybody, just bring all those disciplines all together in one room. And we had some great fun. 11 o'clock every day in Euston, you'll hear the inspector stands, fire alarm test. We would have a chair race at the same time. So as soon as the alarm went off, marks, get set, go. And it would be particularly a tight race between performance and operations and fleet. And there were some interesting things. And in the end, all the senior team came to watch us running and chasing down the arc. So again, sometimes it's always important to have fun as well, just to break it up, because some very tense times on the West Coast, because you're going through the transition of the existing trains to introducing wonderful new Pendolino and Voyager trains, which were technologically a leap into another world for people, operationally to handle them and also technically to maintain them. So that was a real great opportunity. And then from there, got the opportunity then to go to Arriva Trains Wales as the Fleet and Engineering Director. So I was in Wales for 4.5 years. Family came with us, and again, particularly for our eldest, Kirsty, our daughter, who's now a mother. So we're celebrating, obviously, our granddaughter Millie, who's 4.5 months.
Yeah.
She's gone from a very small school to a very big school in Wales, and of course the language and everything. Yeah. Now she sounds more Welsh than anything.
Really? My goodness.
Yeah. So that was thrilling to go to Wales, and a very interesting and challenging franchise. Even the Sunday night before I started work, I had the call from the managing director to say, "You're 24 trains short of service."
24
for Monday morning service. What are you doing about it? Well, I haven't even started from a fleet of 124. Right. So very, very difficult times in Wales at the very beginning. But I had the option just to bring everybody together. And there were some very dark days and some very hard days because there was some, I would say, probably not malpractices, but mistakes again, but significant mistakes. And other customers and clients were losing confidence of what was going on. The franchise was a do-nothing franchise for 15 years, effectively, as many people have reported. But it was great just to harness and get the support to do what was needed to make those improvements. So lots of restructuring, and for me, it's all about, again, being honest with people. This is a difficult situation. We may have to let people go. And when I say dark days, for me, making 100 people redundant 2 days before Christmas Day is
hard. Yeah.
But it's all about supporting people. My phone is on. I'm here. I'm going to take you through the process on an individual basis. And people, even though there's the shock and the pain and the anger, through it, people come out better and they adapt. But that was difficult. And at the same time, being a director, you get the opportunity to be involved in all sorts of other parts of the business as well, from stations to on board and the like. And because of Arriva's significance, particularly in Europe, that gave me the opportunity to go out into Europe and into the Nordic countries. Yeah. And we wanted to put benchmarking in place. So I got exposure into that. Well, I wouldn't say significant international experience, but particularly from Denmark, Germany, Netherlands and the like. That was great in Portugal. So lots of learning and transferable work there.
Yeah.
Then from there, I then became the IEP director.
Yeah.
Working for the Department for Transport. Now that was interesting.
I bet it was.
Lots of people comment about the interiors of IEPs and the like. It's a very challenging situation. My role was to try and represent the needs of East Coast and Great Western, who would be the operators of the trains of the future. And even politically, it was quite well charged. My boss was Elaine Holt. We both reported then directly to Lord Adonis, the Secretary of State, because it was a DFT role. So there was huge amounts of stakeholder engagement. And we had to effectively, because then there was a general election, we went into PERDA. That for me was a great exposure of how the DFT and how governance works, because it couldn't be recommended. It was actually the vine of the IEP project, the Intercity Express program, versus buying 2 aircraft carriers for the country. And when you're involved in it and seeing firsthand how the Secretary of States are having to deal with this in the cabinet, couldn't be recommended, general election gets called, then there's quite rightly, Lord Adonis called for a value for money exercise to be carried out. Then myself and Elaine had to represent effectively the industry in the Sir Andrew Foster reviews. And again, huge capacity, huge intelligence, huge challenge. And then obviously it was still a pause. And I wanted to get my arm and hands dirty because I was responding effectively to media questions and political questions, sat in the DFT. And every morning you'd walk in and there'll be a huge pile of papers. Right. And I can do certain amounts of admin, but it's not my go-to.
Not your thing, John.
So I said to Elaine, would you mind if I get the opportunity to go and do some other bits and pieces? She said, of course you can, providing we can call you back as required. So talking with Tim Shoveler, she's grateful to Tim. Tim had a situation in Leeds with an event at Neville Hill Depot, which is the UK's largest intercity depot that sees 19 to 20 long intercity trains per night, as well as servicing effectively the northern operation, which is hugely significant in the northeast, and indeed provides overhaul facilities as well. Because of the incident, Tim said, can you come have a look at the operation? So I came in and within a couple of weeks made my recommendations, and Tim said, would you like to be the fleet manager for East Midlands Trains? So fantastic, brilliant. And for me, again, taking people through a difficult situation, restructuring, putting new processes in place, new organisation, and improving the resources available, the capabilities and the reliability, for many was phenomenal. And again, we celebrated success, we celebrated past people, we had competitions which are low cost but really brought everybody together, where we painted 4 of the depot shunters all in a corporate livery. And we had a competition between management, in inverted commas, against the painting professionals, to various shift teams, and then we surprised people past of Neville Hill and their families by naming each of the locomotives after the people, and that tear jerking and everything. But that was great for me. I just absolutely loved it, and I just loved my time at Neville Hill. Super. And then I got the chance to go to Australia.
Wow.
My wife always tells me off to be the general manager for freight. And there was a need, particularly because Australia has never seen any, I would say, reduction. It's always been growing and growing and growing. 21, 22 years, there's always a rush for coal, for gold, minerals. The freight business has just gone from strength to strength to strength, but has grown in different elements. And there was a need to really working with Downer, EDI and Pacific National, not to restructure, but just as, can we bring efficiencies together, because there was pockets growing everywhere. So I got the opportunity to go there, but at the same time, unfortunately, there was a family grievance. So the day that my wife Tina was due to fly out was the day that I got the call from the family to say there was a family death. And to break that call to Tina as she's changing flights in Dubai on her first time she's coming out was really, really tough. So we had to deal with grief at the same time. 22-hour, 23-hour flights away from the home and everything. That was quite difficult. But we came back to the UK, and it's gone from strength to strength from there. even though we've had more family situations where my mum and dad, and my mum unfortunately passed away, nearly a year and a half ago now, and my father, they both progressively became very ill 5-6 years ago, and we had to care for them. But at the same time, I got the opportunity to join Hitachi as the production director. So no sooner as I landed in Heathrow from Sydney, excuse me, a little bit more coffee. I was then back on the flight to Tokyo.
Right.
But culturally, what a great opportunity! What a great ethic! What a great principled company! And the reliability, the quality, the workmanship, the record of delivery, superb. And it was also at a time where it was effectively myself, Andy Barr, and Keith Jordan as managing director, and it was a company that was obviously providing the Javelin services, but also Intercity Express program had been obviously approved, and that was in build and in test. There was then also the growth in signalling systems. There was also the growth in all sorts of. So it was a real pleasure to support and work with Hitachi to go from middle size to getting ready for a big organisation as it is now. So that was thrilling and great. So that was a number of years there. And as I say, with my parents unfortunately becoming gravely ill, had to take some time out and got the support of that. Before then getting the opportunity to support Talgo independently of Talgo, and then absolutely thrilled that Talgo asked me to join. And what a company it is. And we can talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but particularly because it's a family run, the values of Talgo it's just awesome. So Carlos de Palacio, our president and chairman, he's the grandson of one of the original founders, and from the technological differences, but also he leads from the front. He runs 20 minutes every day. But the team, everybody, it's such a collaborative way of working. It's just wonderful.
I know when literally every time I've spoken to you since you've joined Talgo, you just and you've had this fantastic career, John, where you've had responsibility really early on. So that chimes with a couple of my previous podcast guests. But Diane Crowther was telling us last time that she was a supervisor at a very early age, as were you. And Mark Hopwood commented the other day that yes, he was 21 when he first got his first managerial supervisory position as well. Kind of having a real kind of flying start to your career, touching various different bits of the industry. But what it feels like to me, kind of having seen you develop into this role over the last 3 years with Talgo, is that you've really found a place where the values, the kind of the family business ethos to it, the approach to innovation and technology and to doing things differently. So despite the fact it's an old company, it's been around a very long time, Talgo strikes me as being having a very modern ethos to it. And that value system, which is it's clearly so important to you, John, and that's what warms my heart really when we have a conversation and you tell me how it's going, what you're involved in, what you're doing. There's just a real sense of pride for you in working for a company like that, isn't there?
Oh, it's like Christmas every day. I'll be doing, my day is so varied. Obviously, we have daily calls just to review with the team where we are with projects or whatever we're doing. But the fact that, there's, led from Carlos, but he's always wanted to bring railways back to the home base of railways and manufacturing and maintenance. and sharing the experiences from what they've achieved across the world back into the UK. Absolute, number one priority. And effectively being given, not, I wouldn't say a clean sheet of paper, but with all the mistakes and all the learning that we've had over the years, and supporting, advising, guiding Talgo along the way to say, well, this is what I recommend. And huge challenge. Why would you want to do that? Well, this, and you take your time, and there's the language, and hopefully my Spanish is getting better. When I return to Spain next time, I'm going to surprise them, because I've been doing continued intense Spanish courses.
Oh, wow.
So, well, they'll probably be listening to this, so they'll be testing me tomorrow. But, from choosing factory locations, helping out with the kit out, the lessons learned from setting that up, how you do culturally with the maintenance and the operations and the standards. And even for me, the track record and the reputation of Talgo is phenomenal. People in Spain, in their passport, one page has a picture of a Talgo train. That's how strong it is in Spain.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow. So it's really part of the culture then.
Yeah. And, I talked to the Hitachi's, excellent reputation and delivery. The Talgo reputation and delivery is impeccable, and it's 99.9%. It was only 0.1% delayed because for one project the client had asked to delay it for other reasons, not because of Talgo. Right.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I don't believe that. I don't believe this. No. And so I tested it, and I went through everyone, and it's true to form. It is.
It's true.
But but then what organisation do you want? How do you set up a company? The access to stakeholders, how you bring people together, the trade union, the way that they work collaboratively with their representatives, not just in Spain but across the world, is just. And again, relaying that again with the general secretaries within the UK. So great, huge engagement with each of the general secretaries here. And they've talked with their colleagues and other organisations across the world just to really just check that out and qualify it. And they're saying, wow, fantastic. And there's little ways of the recognition and rewards and the way that they look after people, but it is a real phenomenal thing. So just before Christmas we talk very regularly, effectively myself and colleagues from each country, and again that experience and knowledge and sharing of things, that's core to the values of Talgo. As you say, the technological things, but it's how we come together to resolve things. People may have a view about mañana in Spanish. It's, for me, there isn't a mañana. It's more a reflective way of agreeing to take things forward.
Okay. Yeah.
Every day there is an intense focus. Delivered. Right. Perfect. The pause is where people are just evaluating, is this the right or wrong way of doing things?
Yeah.
But that's borne out with success, across the world. So for me, I just love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So,
and you can really sense that. As I say, it's. I always know when I say to you, John, how are you? I always know that you're going to have something positive to tell me, because you are a round peg in a round hole. It's like you've found this place, and as you've taken us through your career story, it's really clear what stands out for you is that I know you're passionate about the trains. I know you're passionate about the industry, but what overrides all of that for me is the people side. It's as you've talked to us about, it's the importance of building trust. It's the importance of being honest with people. It's about listening to people. It's about communicating, and all of that kind of wrapped up in this, in the values of how you treat people. And if you get that bit right, then everything else naturally flows. And Talgo appear to be this type of organisation where that's just part of how we do things. We don't have to learn how to do that. We don't have to go on a course or read a book or, go on a webinar. It's actually an intrinsic part of the behaviour of the organisation and has been for many years. And you've found the perfect place for you, haven't you, in terms of that, and your own personal values.
Oh yeah, I'm not moving at all. I'm absolutely loving this.
Fantastic, brilliant. It's great to see. So we've had so as we're recording this now, John, in the second week of 2021, we've all been through a period of difficulty, of challenge, of learning, and I think it's fair to say that whilst there are lots of things that are feeling very uncertain at the moment, one thing that we know with 100% certainty is that the rail industry will not look the same on the other side of this experience as it did when we went in. So if I had my magic wand, I always like to give my guests 3 wishes, John, for if I could grant these 3 wishes for what we would see, what the opportunities are and how we would deal with that to make things better, what would those 3 wishes be for you?
So very simply, and I'll qualify those as well, I think the most important thing for everybody is obviously our health, mental well-being, and just physical.
Yeah.
We need to be adaptable is my second wish. The world has changed, as you say. We can talk about what technological advantages we do with the trains as well, and again we have to have fun as well.
Yeah.
But just to talk further about that, for well-being and health, the intensity of work is incredible. We've all become very experienced in the use of computers and the Zoom calls. But from 8 o'clock in the morning to 12 o'clock at night, you cannot do this. We're fortunate where we live on the canal, and I can see a house opposite me, and I see a lady who is obviously working from home, and her computer's on at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's still on at 8 o'clock at night, and she hasn't moved.
Right.
Now, I know what work she does, and I know it's a very intense piece of work, but she's not getting out. And I know we have to respect the rules.
Yeah.
But what is that doing to her? And that's just one little snapshot. But if you magnify that across the world, so when we have our review calls, with colleagues in Saudi Arabia or Germany or America, we're making sure people are out there. We're supporting everybody out there. Again, the mental side of things. I mean, the way I deal with things, myself and Tina, we dance every night. We'll put some good music on, and it might be from Steps, it might be to Rainbow, it might be to Slipknot, it might be to all, But we have to. That's our way of
disco.
Exactly, And a Christmas present was a karaoke machine and a microphone.
Oh, fantastic! Brilliant.
So we have a bit of fun there, but again, that's one way I release, really effectively.
Yeah.
But I do worry about people. So when certain normality and progressively returns to us all, we need to help people along that way, because people are very comfortable in this environment, like we are just talking now.
Yeah.
But they'll find it quite difficult, I think, and the next generation will find it very difficult to be taken into an office environment or asked to present standing up.
Yeah.
So we need to help that. And again, that builds on to sorry, being
John.
adaptable.
I was just going to come back to what you were telling us earlier about the chair races and the having fun, because what struck me then was how sad it is at the moment, because we can't do that. We're all sitting in our individual rooms and offices and houses. And that kind of the team side of it, the camaraderie side of it, the silliness, actually, I can remember some very, very happy, silly times when I go back to the beginning of my career when I worked for the Royal Bank. And we would be crying, laughing some afternoons, because we'd just kind of entered that silly period, of kind of, we just need to let off some steam. We just need to have a laugh. We'll just need to kind of just for 20 minutes and then we'll be back to it again. And I think that's something that we're really missing. And it worries me that how easy is it going to be to get back to that again? So I completely agree with you there, John. I think a lot of support is going to be needed to kind of get us back into feeling like that again.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I interrupted you.
It's bringing that satisfaction as well, because in the early days we felt very naughty having these little chair races.
Yes.
And we worked out a little system that up the corridor there would be like a tinkle of his spoon in the cup, just to say, look, one of the superiors was coming down. But in fact, all the superiors were coming down just to see who was going to win today.
Brilliant.
Thought, don't get caught, don't get caught.
Yeah, which adds to the excitement, as you say. So your second wish is adaptable, is for the industry to be adaptable. Tell me more about that.
So innovation, research development is absolutely core, as you've kindly said about Talgo as one example. So we're involved in what we need to do to trains for the future. There's obviously filtration and the like, but particularly driven in Asia and indeed Central Europe. Germany is a key one. How do you provide that same capacity of trains and seating capacity of trains pre-COVID? I mean, we know there's a pent-up demand. We're all desperate to travel again.
Yeah.
I think 2021, when vaccines are rolled out significantly, I think probably the UK probably want to be on holiday for the back end of the year, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
But, we need to give that confidence back into the industry and for people. You see significant cleaning regimes, you see significant social media. I mean, it's great what train operators are doing now, engaging with people. This is what we're doing, what we're doing every day. But that message is not getting out, and we understand why, because of restrictions. But there's going to be an absolute explosion. So how do you then, give that comfort to everybody? You don't want to be set on a train where there's still marked off areas and that sort of stuff. So we've been working with, we've done lots of surveys in Spain, lots of surveys in Germany and other places, how we provide that capacity with trains in the future, but also with, advanced methods of effectively self-cleaning, reducing touch points on trains, using technology, you use your smartphones, all this sort of stuff, how you do that. So that's really exciting. There's some real good stuff in there.
Yeah.
But we need to promote that.
Absolutely.
Lots of people are talking about hydrogen propulsion and the green parts of things. That's great. Lots of collaborative work in there. But there's an immediate need to recover that. And as a customer of a train, to buy a ticket, and the way of, is the seat reserved or not? We need to do a lot better in the UK for that.
There's a huge opportunity there, isn't there? Massive.
Yeah.
To be better.
Yeah, but I'm very keen on promoting what other countries are doing into this country as well.
Yeah, we've got a lot to learn, actually, haven't we? But there are a lot of good ideas happening, and different ways of doing things, and having that, being able to collaborate with other countries and bring those ideas where it's relevant into the UK and share some of our stuff with them, because there's a lot of good stuff going on here too. So I think collaboration is one of the words that, there's been a lot of words that have been overused, hasn't there, John, in the last 10 months. I think we feel like we never want to hear unprecedented again. But I think collaboration for me, certainly as far as the rail industry is concerned, This is a word that we're using more in all the right ways, and the behaviour that sits behind that, the collaboration that's going on between the department, between the operating community, the trade unions, all of these relationships with different stakeholders seem to be a lot more positive, a lot more collaborative than maybe they were before. So the one good thing to come out of it. So you've given us, as we've gone through, John, you've given us some really big hints in terms of what your view of leadership is all about and what matters to you around, these different values, around honesty, around listening to people, around being approachable, supportive, recognising people as individuals and what they might need from you as a leader. Can you give us a couple of examples of things that you think that you've learned from other leaders that are important, and things which you have taken with you and will continue to take with you throughout your career?
I've dealt with some and worked with some very difficult leaders where nothing was as good enough for them. I've dealt with some, very light touch leaders as well, which also makes you quite anxious.
Yeah.
I get quite nervous about how people might perceive me or whatever. And I've dealt with, some very engaging, supportive leaders. Again, that goes with Talgo right now. Dealing with a difficult leader, I think it's just you get that bit between your teeth, and you say, "I'm going to show you now," and you make that difference. And I've had a few of those. And again, culturally, some people might think, "Oh, well, you're not English, you're not Welsh, you're not Scottish, whatever you are," type thing. So you get that parochialism. Again, I just get the bit between my teeth and just stick at it and deliver. That's the key thing. I think when you're dealing with a light touch person who leaves you alone, there's that natural need, like as a parent-child relationship, where you need to be fed, you need that feedback, you need that. So you push back a little bit, so you make a little bit of noise, a little bit like when I was an apprentice. I want to go north of the river. And eventually, you get that support. I mean, there are a number of role models, and indeed, what's been a real privilege throughout my career is a number of these people have then come and worked and supported me in other roles. So they may have been my superior before, and then they were wanting to work with me to continue it. So, and again, when you do that for the first time, you think, "Oh my goodness, this used to be the big boss, and he's now
awkward."
Or this lady is, oh my goodness me. So it's all about being adaptable, which is my third wish, really. And we're going to have to spend so much time with the next generation of people, how to support them through this from the future, because lots of IT experts, but being out there on the shop floors, on the stations, on the platforms. I mean, another son, he's in the railway industry, not through any influence of me, fair play, he loves it, but he's working from home and he's absolutely desperate just to get out there and work with and be with the passengers and the customers.
Again. So I think that, as I said, all the way through this conversation, John, you've given us, you've shared a lot of stuff about what you've learned personally as you've gone through your career. As we've said, the last 10 months have provided lots of learning opportunities for all of us. And I'm wondering, as we bring our conversation to a close, I'm going to ask you to share two things with me. Could you tell me what you think you have learned? What's been your key learning, whether that's about you, whether it's about the industry, whether it's about the world? What have you learned? What's been the big thing for you as a result of going through a global pandemic situation? And my final question that I always love to ask my guests on the podcast is to share a favourite quote I have lots of them. Shared one with you before we started recording the podcast today. Got quite a few that I kind of go back to, depending what mood I'm in and what the need is. So I'd love to know, do you have a favourite quote that you can leave us with, John? So what have you learnt, and what's your favourite quote?
Thank you. What have I learned? I think I've learned my physical capacity for work.
Right.
To try and, we have a very structured day, and we have multi-projects to deal with, but it's having to really structure your day where you put some natural breaks in. I might go and take the camera out at lunchtime for 5-10 minutes along the canal. But it's knowing that capacity, because it's been so intense.
Yeah.
So, and don't be afraid to tell people that either. Yeah.
That is so pertinent for me at this point in time, John. So you've almost brought tears to my eyes there, because it's a big learning for me, and I keep forgetting it, and I keep having to go back to it, that we have all got a capacity for the number of hours that we can actually work in a day, and the effort that we can put in for that number of hours. And that learning is really important. That's a key one. Thank you for
that. The quote, I'm not sure who actually wrote it. I read this when I first went to Ramsgate as a depot manager. Now, I think it might have been because I've been into the British Rail Management Training School courses at the infamous Grove and places like that.
Yeah.
So I can't quote who actually wrote it, but it's stuck with me forever. 1 minute of your time, my time, could be somebody else's lifetime.
Right. Well, that's a deep one. My goodness. Thank you for that. John, I could talk to you all day. I always feel like this. Whenever I am on the phone to you or we bump into each other, as we used to in the old days at the Rail 100 breakfast, which I'm missing and really looking forward to getting back to. I really am grateful to you for taking the time this morning to join me on the Intuitive Insights podcast. There's so much that you've said to us that's really resonated with me, that I know will be of interest to our audience. And the one thing that just keeps coming back to me time and time again, I know you have a passion for the trains themselves, but this is so much more than that, isn't it? It's so much more than the trains. It's the whole kind of the way of life, the difference it makes, the leadership side, the people side. It's just brilliant. I've loved listening to you, John. I'm really hugely grateful to you for taking part. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. It's been a real honour.
My huge thanks to John for sharing his thoughts and insights with us today. The next episode of Intuitive Insights will be with you in 2 weeks' time, when I will be joined by Nigel Harris, editor of the industry's leading journal, Rail Magazine, who is one of the best teller of stories that I know, so I can guarantee you an interesting conversation. I do hope you can join us.